On these, Donna has went through and made some changes. As we go through into this year, we have it on our list to review some of this stuff even more, just so that we keep it live and keep it active, but we will get that stuff out to you as we make changes to it, just to make it more relative, more pertinent to what we're doing now, because some of this stuff was written several years ago and it needs to be updated, so.
HIPAA really began HIPAA. Some people spell it like HIPPO, H-I-P-P-A, but it's actually H-I-P-A-A. HIPAA began, I think, really back in the 1990s as a way to protect consumers. As a way to say, wow, we've got fax machines, we've got all kinds of stuff now that's out there. Things are being left around. Consumers' health information is maybe at risk. So HIPAA came along, the government came along and decided to start making some practices and policies around how and HIPAA really is about protected health information, how that could be shared and how it should be shared, and what are some best practices and policies around that. So that any agency, you know, you go to your doctor's office and maybe you sign in or whatever, you know, now they take a label off or whatever. We used to have, in groups, like in counseling, it used to be people could go around and sign in and put their address. You know, we know we can't do that anymore. HIPAA has really said that your right to seek services in that really belongs to you. And that we, as people who work with people, have to really take every effort to protect that. So not only HIPAA, but when COA, which is the Council on Accreditation, and our other folks come along, we'll cover today things like what you can have on your bulletin boards, what should be left at the fax machines, what you can transmit over your cell phone. So HIPAA, you know, you can only imagine as technology has advanced, we are really challenged as healthcare workers.
And we are struggling with it so that you have the tools you need to do your job. It's still trying to protect our clients and their confidentiality. Because one of the key things I always keep in mind, treat that information how you would want somebody treating your personal information, because it's very personal and relative to them. And it's our job to do the best we can to protect it.
Okay. So the first policy we're going to do is called Privacy Notice Policy and Procedures.
Do they have this?
Yes, everybody has this in your packet, correct? And I realize it says revised 2011 at the bottom. There is a revised 2013 paper out there, and I will get that to you. I will, however, talk with you about a couple of the changes we did make to the HIPAA. This is something that is given to all clients when they come on board. It should be posted at the sites. It's posted like on the wall at a site or in a frame. Jim and I actually work to make sure there's one posted at the CAC in a frame. There's one posted also at Shively and New Albany. Basically, in order for us, if you read the purpose, to be compliant with the privacy rules of HIPAA, we have the following conditions for providing notice to our clients that they are covered under HIPAA. All clients have a right to be informed as to how their own health information is managed, and we're going to be doing that through this document that is posted. All clients are required to give signed consent for the use of their information as defined in the procedure we're going to talk about in a minute. We post a copy, as I said, at each service delivery site. If someone wants their own personal copy, they can ask for a copy of it, and copies are kept at the offices to also give to a client. You know, I think it's so commonplace now. Most folks are like, no, I'll just go ahead and sign the client's rights and responsibilities in that, which talks about HIPAA, and they're good to go. However, we can offer and should offer to every client a copy of this if they want that. On number 4, it says, and also it can be available in Spanish as well, and that's also at the sites. On number 4, it says that clients sign a written acknowledgement. Basically, how we read it now is that clients are offered a copy of it. And if they want a copy of this, that is now included on the client's rights and responsibility form. It says, I have requested and have received a copy of the HIPAA privacy practice. So now we need to offer this to every client. And if a client wants a copy, we provide that to them as well. A lot of clients, we give it to them, it's right in the trash can. So really our requirement is that we offer them a copy. And then if they do take a copy, we have them sign on their client's rights and responsibilities We have had complaints where clients have come back and said, you know, nobody told me about that. So we put it right on the client's rights and responsibility form to make sure that we're doing that. So anyway, is there any question about that so far? Okay, if you turn over the page, basically, this is what our privacy policy includes. They're right about what HIPAA is about. They acknowledge that there's a procedure on how we safeguard, give them service, and how they receive service. Each of you, if we go to page 3, on page 3, I'm not going to go by each point because it would take like be a whole
We would be
day.
here all afternoon.
But may I hit with you some highlights that I think is really important for you guys to know. On page 3, it talks about the privacy officer, and just so you know, that's me. And if I'm ever not around, it would certainly be Pam Darnell or anybody on the leadership team. So you may sometimes get a client who wishes to file a grievance policy or wishes to file actually a complaint around how their protected health information was used, or maybe they felt it wasn't used. You would talk with your supervisor and you would contact me, and I would walk you through what would be the procedure on that. Develops privacy notice. Number 2, all staff members are responsible for reading and understanding this and how it affects basically your clients, so to speak. If you as an employee feel for some reason the agency is not in compliance with HIPAA, then you would certainly hopefully bring that to my attention. As we go through some of the different safeguarded ways we're safeguarding client information, you may find something in your office that you think could be handled better. Maybe you feel information's left too long on a fax machine for everybody to look at. So maybe you and your decide that if somebody at your location comes across something about a client, it should go immediately in that person's box if it's faxed to them. We don't have somebody standing right at the fax machine giving. So each employee is responsible. If I see something that belongs to hands or family stabilization on the fax machine when I walk in there, I will take it and put it into the person's mail slot.
Right. Instead of just leaving it sitting there on the fax machine saying, oh, that's not mine, I'm just going to ignore it.
Just so you know, each of you, it is okay that you receive health information or you look at it from hands or something like that. That's okay because we're employees here. But we want to make sure that we really get it to where it belongs. So at each of your sites, you may come across a way it can be done better. Please feel free to just say, you know, I'm thinking that, you know, we could do this differently or better. We're really all into that and wanting to improve how we are protecting people's health information. All employees will be trained. That's why you're here today. On an annual basis, and or if and when the privacy notice is changed as it was this fall, I sent out notices to all employees that were current employees. One of the things Janet and I have talked about doing now is once a year we will come to the different CQI teams and do an updated training.
It's just too important.
Right, and make sure everybody signs. Because, you know, you could be here for a while and get kind of complacent, something could have changed, maybe you didn't, you know. Supervisors, we do have supervisors to stay on top of it as well, but we've decided that will be our best way to make sure that everybody understands the latest changes around HIPAA.
And part of the issue is that we need information back from you all, because as you all know, technology is changing so quick, and we're trying to provide the best service we can to our clients. We need to make sure we're covering everything, and coming out and talking to you all gives us the opportunity, if we're missing something, to address it at that point also.
If you look on page 4, there's some important things I think you guys need to know about. We've talked about that paper copies of this notice are kept at every site and they're also posted. Each new client of record must receive a copy. What we're basically saying there is they are offered a copy, but at least you need to say, have you read it? We would like them to read it. So, you know, you would want to hand it to them, let them read it. They may not want to keep that copy. They may say, no, I'm fine. But if they do, remember they're going to sign on the client's rights and responsibilities. Typically, your front desk support staff signs, you know, offers that to them. Or you may decide that it's actually the therapists themselves because they're going to be signing on that client's rights and responsibilities list. I do not personally like that support staff, if you're running an office, have the, I do not like if the support staff is having them sign the client's rights and responsibilities. That really needs to be done by a therapist and/or case manager and/or family support worker, because there's important things in that client rights and responsibilities that's got to be reviewed before that therapy or that case
Services
management
provided.
session even starts. So I know it could be something that's happening at the sites. If that is, I really discourage that. I ask that the therapist and/or the actual direct service worker reviews that client rights and responsibilities. It can be given when they sit down so they can start reading it, but it really shouldn't be signed until they're actually sitting with the worker. I don't know if any treatment episode per se really takes place over the phone. That's number 2 on here. It's possible in some of the programs, but I would imagine almost every program there's going to be that face-to-face encounter. And that's where you really need to make sure this information is being handled appropriately. But even intake, when they call in and we start to get the health information, whether it's over the phone or whatever, we're really responsible for securing that and making sure that protected health information is kept confidentially and also in a way that conforms with HIPAA. Number 5, if a client does not want or disagrees with our HIPAA information, please contact me. Contact your supervisor immediately, who would contact me. We do not provide service ever to a client if they do not sign the client's rights and responsibility form. If that should be signed before you deliver any service. If they say, I don't want to sign, we don't do an intake, we don't see them. Because basically it's rights and responsibilities. It's their rights as a consumer, but it's also their responsibilities as a consumer. So I want to be very clear about that as well. I don't know that I've ever, actually I have had that situation once, and I just said, you know, we will, before we enroll them as a client, we will talk with them about their concerns. Maybe they've had a bad experience. We'll try to talk that through, but we will not consider the service to have begun here as a client until that form is signed. I hope that makes sense. Are there any questions as you look at this particular policy? There's also something we call HIPAA Business Associate Agreements. So that means anybody who receives protected health information about our clients as well, we have to have a professional business agreement with. That was modified also by HIPAA in September of this year, so I modified those forms. And recently, all the program directors received, hopefully they're shared with staff, a list of whom we currently have professional business agreements with. I think it's by March 24th, we've asked everybody to get that information back to Janet Tinsley. And Janet and I are working on making sure that we have the appropriate professional business agreements. It's everything from the people who do our billing, our financial software, all the way through to like Jefferson County Public Schools or any particular school that we're in. You know, anybody with whom we share regularly protected health information. So for HANS, there's certain ones. For CAC, there's Crimes Against Children Unit. There are these professional business agreements that have to be done. We ask people to be mindful as you forge new partnerships during the year, to be mindful, just thinking, I wonder if we need a business agreement with that person. We want to make sure whoever we're giving our information to is also safeguarding that.
Right, and basically what the business associate agreement is if you're working with client data, they're promising to treat it in a responsible manner, following the HIPAA guidelines, so we're not putting our clients' information at risk.
I would imagine everybody that you do business with, if it's, you know, the health department, if it's Jefferson County Public Schools or Indiana or Crimes Against Children Unit, everybody also pretty much is covered under HIPAA. So we may be signing their professional business agreements. They may be mutual.
It's usually very easy. Usually once you say it, they say, oh, no big deal, just send me the form, and they sign it.
What we do is we email it to them. What we need from you are correct addresses and contact people, because you know, you could go to somebody who says, I don't know what this is about, and throws it in the trash can. So we're following up and just making sure all that's done according to HIPAA standards. On the next page is the actual notice of privacy practices. This is what is hanging hopefully at your sites. If it is not, I need to know. Jim took care of framing them and making sure they were everywhere. There were some additions this year to this privacy policy that HIPAA, the government, decided we needed to put in that we had not had before. If you look at this, the first thing up there is how to contact me in case they have any questions about that. And then how it discloses, it talks about how are we going to use that? Who's going to maybe, if you come here for services, who are we maybe going to share this information with? It's going to be shared for treatment purposes, for payment purposes, for our own internal healthcare operations, sometimes between programs with finance, whatever that we need. We may also use it to contact you to remind you of your appointment, to inform you about possible treatment options, health-related benefits and services. Use and disclosures that may be made without your authorization or opportunity to object. Emergencies. This could happen in family stabilization, it could happen in CAC, it certainly happens in counseling or in hands. If someone says to you that they're thinking of threatening harm to themselves or others, we may have to do an involuntary commitment, you may have to contact their family member or whatever. So there are certain situations we want to just say to clients. That's also included, by the way, in the client's rights and responsibilities that they sign. And that's part of the reason we don't do business if they don't sign that. So emergencies, under research as required by law, if there's federal, state, or local law. If somebody faints at the office and we had to call an ambulance, we may need to say to them, we do know that they put on their previous health history information that they're allergic to penicillin.
Yeah, share the information.
Right, we can share
certain pertinent relative information with
that could
them.
save their life. Maybe in counseling, we know that that person's prone to seizures. We call the ambulance, we say, I think they have a seizure history. All of your clients fill out a previous health history information, so if there were an emergency, boy, I'd grab that form and look at it to see what they had told me about any allergies they had, that kind of thing.
Or any type of medications or anything of that nature.
To avert a serious threat to health or safety, judicial and administrative proceedings. So it's really law enforcement, your family be involved. A new one that we added was deceased clients, fundraising, and I think specialized government functions were new ones that we added this year. For example, we may send you fundraising communication, but you can opt out. So there's all different kinds of your right regarding your protected health information. They certainly have the right to inspect and to have a copy of this. The latest is they have a right to a copy of their medical record. There are certain situations where we may decide that would not be appropriate. We also have to have all the right signed informed consent forms in that. Sometimes in counseling, for example, the couple divorces, the husband wants a copy of what's going on. We can't because it includes information on the wife. So there's all kinds of reasons when people ask for a medical. If anyone ever says, I want a copy of my record, you would talk with, for example, Jennifer or Becky League or John Taylor or whomever is your Raylene, about the person has asked for this. And we don't sit in our office and say, sure, no problem, and give them a copy. We don't do that. It goes through the appropriate channels first. They have a right to amend. If they've written something in their record and they get a copy and they're like, I never said that, I don't want, they can't go in and change the actual copy, but we provide them the opportunity to add something to that, and we incorporate that into their actual mental health record or their case management record or whatever. They have the opportunity to add things. Right to an accounting of disclosures, request restrictions. At any time, somebody could sign a consent form and then say, oops, I take that back. We require that in writing. If they tell us over the phone, we would say we need you to come in or we'll fax that form, but we would also note that in our own client record, and we would make sure we no longer sent anything out. However, we need to tell the client if it's out there up until the day they revoke it, it's considered
until you get that form back.
Or if it is over the phone, because sometimes people have moved out of state, we do know that the client is asked to no longer have any release to a particular doctor or whatever. Breach notification. This is really interesting. If there is a breach of any information concerning you, we may be required to notify you, including what happened and how you can protect yourself. I recently went to a HIPAA training, and they talked about how somebody had gone to an emergency room. And you know how easy it is to tear off sheets? Some lady called back to the emergency room and said, you gave me a copy of, I don't know who this person is, John Smith's emergency room discharge papers. So this woman knew she got somebody else's wrong information, right? That can happen in counseling. It's very possible somebody might go home with somebody else's wrong paper, even if it's just a signing of the client rights and responsibilities or whatever. There's 3 levels. There's something called, there is a, let me see if I remember.
And we'll go through this a little bit more further.
Yeah, there's like
today.
an event, there's what they actually call, there's just an event, something happened, and then there's an incident, it's a little higher, and then there's actually a breach. We really do feel that something's been violated. We have, at that point, we have to notify the client whose information we think was breached about that situation. We take it really seriously.
And tell them what happened and what
Right.
did we do to remedy
We do
it.
not let clients walk or come behind desks at sites. We don't let them, pull up next to your desk and look at everybody else's stuff on your desk. It's very easy for somebody to accidentally, just pick up something by accident, a paper or anything. So, there should always be a bit of personal space, whether there's desks or whatever it is. Because it is the other thing is it's possible to lose a client's record. When that happens, if you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I had this and it's gone, immediately supervisors need to be notified. We do what we can. You know how you've been listening to the news and you may hear, Target, remember that big breach at Target? The government requires, for example, on your personal consumer, which contains your social security number, that's considered protected health information. If there's 500 or more folks whose information has been breached, it has to be put in the media. We're not going to put, a one time, but 500 or more. If this agency had a situation where maybe there was a tornado and there were 500 records, which could happen, that got dispersed, that would be on the media to notify folks, because we wouldn't maybe be able to, even though it also means things that were out of our control, like if something was hacked into, if there was a tornado. So it's a way to just keep consumers safe. So that's what's called breach, and then write to a paper copy of this notice. You have the right to get it at any time. We don't really do with confidentiality of substance abuse records that you will see. I noted on there, not sure if we still need this. I imagine with Medicaid we are going to.
So that's where this becomes a living, changing, breathing document.
This is a breathing document. Yep. Policy on confidentiality and protection of private health information. And I know counseling probably a little better than some of the other programs, but whether it's family stabilization or it's hands, clients tell you a lot of stuff sometimes. I mean, a lot. And I have seen therapists and case managers that have written Bibles, and I'm like, and then quote everything in quotes, 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 quotes. There is no way I can sit in an hour session and remember. Don't use quotes, number one, when you're doing a lot of communication, unless, like with maybe the CAC or a forensic, it's an absolute essential thing, because there's no way in an hour you're going to remember things by quotes. You don't want to put anything in that record unless it pertains to the issue for which you're treating the person, and or if it's in reference to emergency or crisis information. You don't want to put somebody had an adulterous affair with somebody and somebody else had something else and somebody had something else. Basically, especially now that clients at any time have the right to read your record, and we don't know who could, when it's subpoenaed in a court or something, we want to be very pertinent and relevant about what you put in the records. Please just be careful. And supervisors, I think, do a really nice job of reviewing new documentation and making sure that it's pertinent. Does that make sense? So, minimum necessary use of that. The client is the primary source. Use of authorizations, auditors who come in, your field placement supervisors from universities, different people might have access to the records, and that's covered in the client's rights and responsibilities. how people can revoke authorizations at any time. I'm going to let you just read on. There's special consent forms for those of you that videotape clients, whether it's at the CAC or it's in counseling. I don't think case management enhanced and/or family stabilization does any of that.
So we don't do nearly as much videotaping as what we used to at one point.
Right.
And it's just due to the nature of the services that we're providing at this time.
If any of your clients participate, like with development program or something like that, and being part of a success story or something, the new agency video out, there's special consent forms they sign just for that. So, requests from law enforcement, how all that is handled, research, that is all covered, and so I would ask you all to read through that. The policy on protecting, this is where it gets a little more interesting on what you see every day. These are the visuals at your office and the real hands-on handling that you do of that protected health information. So I'm going to let, Janet will jump in here, I'll ask you guys to jump in, but we'll start with bulletin boards.
Yeah, and this is just a quick list. There's probably things on here that we haven't thought of, but hopefully this just gets you thinking about things that you hadn't thought of, just to make sure that we are protecting our clients' information.
So, in the old days, if you had an office and a client sent you a thank you letter, it was great to post that in the hallway, post baby pictures, their kids grad. We don't do that anymore without client-signed releases.
Unless they say it's okay.
So if you've got a coworker who's posted thank you notes with, sometimes kids draw and they don't put their name on the bottom and stuff, that's fine. But if their first name is even on that, that should not be posted in an office. We are not allowed to do that. And I'll have to be honest, I've seen that and I probably haven't done a good job myself about addressing it. We should not have, even if it's a first name, art pictures and things that posted by kids, because it sends a message to a parent who walks in and says, oh, I wonder if my kid does something, if it's going to be on these walls. And we really don't want that. We can encourage kids to draw and maybe not put their name on the bottom and hang those. But if you see that in your office, please just advise your coworkers or the people that you're working with. Baby pictures, nice thank you letters. It's wonderful, it's heartwarming. Share it in a team meeting. Don't post it for other clients to be able to see. Hope that makes sense. Cards, notes of appreciation, cleaning personnel. We talk with them when they come in about whatever they may come across. That's why we have special policies. Don't believe in charts on your desk. Don't believe in, things out and about. You never know, that cleaning personnel may be the brother of somebody that's getting case management or counseling or CAC services. So we try as workers to be very mindful of, computer screens is the next one. It should be positioned in such a way that your clients, when you're talking to them, like this is going to be especially important now that we're taking laptops out with us, like hand swoopers are or whatever. We don't want them looking at anything that would have somebody else's information on a computer screen. So using delays on your computer screen, passcodes on your cell phones, all those kind of things that we're talking about. They should be configured to go blank or just have another message every 5 seconds or 15 seconds. If you don't know how to do that, there's settings on your computer that allow you to do that. Kathy or Janet will certainly help with that. I wasn't very technological, so Kathy helped me figure out how to do that.
Our policy is, and it doesn't matter whether you like it or not, your screensaver is going to come on, and to get back on, you have to do a password. It can be annoying and what have you. That's our policy. It is to protect our clients. It is to protect you. We're not going to change that.
Conversations, you don't want to go to Taco Bell and be talking about, a difficult hands client or case management client, There have been cases, honestly, where people have overheard that and reported that.
Or even in your own office, if clients are present.
Yeah. You get a telephone call. It's better to, if it's an emergency, let's say you're in your office and there's a client emergency and support staff has to call into you. You should request that, the current client in your office, this is only an emergency, maybe they leave. Or if you're doing a home visit, you walk out and take the call on your cell phone, but we don't ever want to have that conversation in front of another client. Your desk and countertops, and I really want to walk through this with you guys because it's things we don't think about. If you've got to have a chart, it should be face down and not in any way, again, your laptop, wherever it is possible. if you're taking a record out of, most of our programs have an in and out card. And if you don't, every program should have that. When you leave with a chart for the day, or whatever, you're gonna take a chart with you somewhere, there would be an in and out card when it comes down for peer review or whatever your support staff signed out by who took the chart out. We ask you never to take a whole record with you. Just take the forms that you need, because that really cuts down on the possibility of charts getting lost. So people that do home base, they may keep forms in their cars. They may have. Now that more of our home base personnel, especially hands, I'm thinking of, and some of the child welfare folks actually are using computers, and hopefully we're looking at getting some for family stabilizations very soon. Hopefully, can you imagine what would happen if that were to be lost? It's really a scary thought. Or now a lot of you have cell phones, and Janet will talk about that when we get to that. But there are special procedures. If you are, every program that has any kind of confidential health information should have a black, or not a color it is, could be silver, but a carrying box that locks. Right. So that if you're carrying files in your car. Thank you, Rashad. All right. Yes. It would go, and if Rashad's making a home visit, it's locked, it's kept in the trunk of his car. He only
does not
takes into the home what he needs, or the form for that particular person. If you're out at any of the community sites and you work from there, the same thing. You know, in the past, people throw charts on the back of their car, you know what I mean, on the back seat, then you have an accident and they're flying everywhere. So part of what we say is they're kept in a black box and locked. And actually, I've seen some attractive silver boxes. Yeah. So I don't care what color you get, but we just need a lock box. We bought black ones, so I think you inherited.
Well, that's what Office Depot had at the moment.
Yes.
But, also, one other thing that has happened, and it's actually happened 2 or 3 times over the last few years, is particularly those that are doing in-home services, and they lock their car, they go home, they do everything they're supposed to, their car gets stolen. And it's actually happened twice that I can think of within the last few years. Well, we have client information in that car that was stolen. We will never get that back.
So that would be a breach. We would have to, even though it was not intentional, we would have to notify the clients. We would have to do an incident report. So we do ask that some people, you know, they don't come back to the office at the end of the home visit. We ask that you take it out of your car in the lockbox into your home. Same with your computer, that it not be in your car.
Which is a pain because you're having to lug the stuff in and lug it out. We recognize that. But since this has happened, and it's actually happened twice within the last few years, it is a true threat. And so, yes, it is a bit inconvenient for you to have to lug that stuff into your house and then back out the next morning when you know you're not going to touch it through the night. But we ask you to do that.
Does that make sense? Moving down to keys, there's a reason, like for example, to get into the CAC, you have to use a key fob. There's certain clients, those that we know that have had substantial sexual abuse cases are on the sexual offender registry. Now with our counseling located there, before we can even have a client be able to be seen there for counseling, we have to make sure that we have to check an intake to make sure they're not on the sexual offender registry list. So there's reasons sometimes we have certain key fobs, how important they are. You know, that's the first entry into getting to protected health information. So all keys are signed out. There's a certain process you went through, probably in orientation, to get a key. Printers and fax machines. I know for me, sometimes when I'm going to fax something, I want to quickly not even bother with the fax cover sheet. But think how important that is. Anybody can think of why we would want to use the fax cover sheet? It's got the disclaimer on there. If you have received this information by accident, you know, whatever, that covers us.
You're asked to destroy it.
If you didn't use the fax cover sheet, we're not really covered. Does that make sense? So the fax cover sheet has that little disclaimer on there if you, in an unintended way, received this information. So make sure you use the fax cover sheet. Make sure as best you can that the fax recipient. We have had situations where it has gone to the wrong place and they have called us, and an incident report honestly should be done on that. That's considered an unintended incident, not a breach. Mm-hmm. So because that person returned it to us and it was an unintended, we would just make a note of that. Right. the big thing there is to make sure that we don't keep doing that.
Right, and if we have an incorrect phone number, to make sure we get that phone number corrected in our records, or actually determine what happened, you know, if it was just an accident, then it was just an accident. If we had a bad phone number, then we need to get the correct phone number, or fax number.
Record storage, most all of your records are kept in some way in a centralized record-keeping system, correct? I'm learning, I'm new to a lot of the other programs, but, you know, we tell people it doesn't go in your drawer at the end of the night. It goes back into that centralized record-keeping system at your site. So I hope that makes sense. And if you do take a record out, there's that in and out card that is signed. I kept transcription in there because I know at the CAC, the doctors may still use some. I don't know if they still transcribe, or I'm not sure how that works.
There's
but
some rare cases.
There's some rare cases, and we still have iRecord over there and some video recording. But what I want to emphasize where it says workforce vigilance, it really takes a village to protect everybody's information. You know, it would be very easy. It's actually a very easy thing, you know, to do if you work here, for example, at the Family Service Center. Boy, those printers and machines are working overtime. And, you know, you sometimes see somebody's information, like I said earlier, just please place that in the appropriate mail slot. And if you don't know who it goes to, which worker, just put it in, whether it's Jennifer's or Judy Stahlberg's, or Becky's, just put it in the correct person. And the same is true for your sites. Just make sure it gets to where it goes. Needs to be. And then the out-of-office protocol form, do you want to walk them through that, Janet? And there is we're going to ask you to sign that today and turn it back into us as part. We're going to have 2 forms as part of HIPAA training today that you will sign acknowledging this.
Well, and one of the things that we're looking at doing differently, we used to just focus in on the out-of-office form for those that were doing in-home services. Now our services are so varied and delivered in so many different manners that we are looking at having every service provider do this. Because basically what it's talking about is just using due diligence, particularly when you're outside of the office, to protect your client's information. And it goes through and it walks through how to handle some of that information. You know, make sure your paperwork is stored safely and securely. We're talking about the lock boxes. There may be some other forms that you use to do it, but basically that it's secure, that it is protected, that it is locked in some form or another. At the end of the day, particularly if you work off-site, because I don't know that we have anybody here that's working in a community-based site. We don't have control of that facility. Make sure you sign off. Make sure you're not leaving your progress notes of the client that you were working on as you were leaving, just sitting there on your screen for anybody to read. We should actually do that in office, but at least we have some control over the flow of people coming and going from our offices. When we're at some of these other sites, we have absolutely no influence or control whatsoever. So there again, just think of it like this is my information. Would I want somebody going off leaving this on the computer screen? Hopefully most of you all already do this anyway, but if you need to take stuff with you, I'm not going to walk through each one of these, but there are steps here that we need to do to make sure, and part of it is what Donna's already talked about. Just take part of the record that you need. Don't take the whole record. Make sure you do the sign-out part so that if somebody needed access to that record, like say your supervisor went in because there's something going on with this client, the record's not there, they know why. If they go there and the record's not there where it's supposed to be, and there's not a card, we have no idea where it is or why it's not there.
And one of the things I ask admin support staff, for those of you that have admin support, I know Jennifer, it might be something Katie could help you with, or maybe the supervisors could do. Run an active case list, or even an inactive, run a whole case list, open case list, and periodically go through your files and make sure that,
Spot check it.
spot check.
Yeah.
It's really bad when a record's missing for a month before anybody's like,
Exactly.
ooh, I wonder,
Exactly.
I don't know, you know. So if we could catch that on at least
Right.
a weekly basis or
Right.
every other week, that helps.
And just so that you all know, we are transitioning to a new data system, so we've been a little bit behind on some of this stuff. We used to be really on top of it. It will not be long. It will be within the next month that program managers directors, whatever we're called these days, and supervisors and team leaders and whatever will be introduced to the new system, and they will be able to start running these reports themselves. It'll be a little bit down after the road on that staff themselves will have access to it. So, you know, eventually you'll be able to run your own open case report if you want to go and see exactly where you stand. Printers and faxes, goes back to what Donna was talking earlier. If you print something, you print your progress log or whatever, go get it. Don't sit there and wait a half hour at the end of the day, or all of a sudden you go up there the next day to pick up whatever your timesheet that you printed and say, oh yeah, I printed that, and that's been sitting there for a day. Don't do your best not to do that. You print something, you go get it. We try to have the printers as conveniently located as possible, so hopefully that's not too much of an imposition. When you throw stuff away, make sure it's shredded or it goes into one of the shred boxes. Those of you that are off-site, sometimes you don't have a good place to be able to do that stuff. A lot of people will just take like an old paper box, kind of store it in there, and then bring it into like one of our offices, because we do have the shred box that you can just dispose of it then. When you're working at your office, if you have to leave your work area, you got somebody's case or chart, stick it in your drawer real quick. So there again, you're in a place that we don't control the environment. You don't know who's going to be walking by that desk. Or if you're just working on a piece of paper, at least make sure you turn it over so that it's not visible. Most of this is just common sense, but do what you can so that someone can't just walk up and see what you're doing. Just use good common sense on that, particularly if there's clients' presence. Now, some of your peers and what have you, that's not that big of a deal, but clients and other personnel that really have no need to know anything about your clients or what's going on, they don't need to know. If you've been assigned a laptop, this is where it goes on to, don't leave it unattended, things get stolen. Store it safely. We ask you, if you do take it with you, to bring it in your house, not to leave it in your car overnight. Just use due diligence. There's another twofold here. One reason we don't like it left in the cars for an extended period of time is the heat and cold can wreak havoc on this hardware holding up, and you will have more problems. So, but there again, we also understand sometimes you don't have a choice but to leave that laptop in a car for an hour or two, and it's 100 degrees outside. You know.
We know those things happen.
Yeah. We're just asking you to do everything within your power to be aware, to be cognitive of it, to use some common sense. Treat the equipment like it was your equipment too, because we have a hard time replacing equipment.
Great. You know, it dawned on me, I'm going to move this up a little bit because it may be filming us, but I know their ability to pick up voice might be a little bit, so I'm going to just move this table briefly before we continue and make sure that we're getting there. But thanks for offering, Rashad. I was just coming around real quick. Yeah, I'm just thinking our voices, it may be doing just fine, but I know.
My voice picks up pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if there's a way to zoom in and out of this thing. I'm going to leave that to Rashad. Rashad's got this down. Good deal. It just dawned on me that nothing's worse than you're listening to a recording of some training of whatever and you can't hear a thing they're saying.
You want to do the sanctions?
We're going to power through the sanctions really quickly.
Yeah, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this because we talked about it.
I'm going to let Rashad just kind of readjust the camera for us. And
Okay, guys are good?
we're good to go. Thank you so much. HIPAA mandates that we sanction, that there be sanctions for employees who would violate this. And when I say employees, that also means our interns.
Or any type of contract.
Also, normally we have interns that also attend the training. We'll have them again at the next training because we get some new interns in May. But HIPAA requires, as you see at the top, that covered entities, which are people like us, apply sanctions. Some of the kinds of issues that have occurred that I am aware of would be, we've had loss of records due to basically negligence. Someone not reporting, out of fear, not reporting, that if records are maybe misplaced. As soon as we know, we have been awesome about, really protecting that and having backup drives for copies and working with clients with that. But if someone were to really leave important health information open, perhaps at another site or something, disciplinary actions would occur. And here are some of the examples. If you look on page 3 of the sanctions, unintentionally sends faxes as a result of being careless. There's just a verbal warning for the first. If that were to continue to occur, we would be concerned about that. Unauthorized use or misuse of agency equipment, such as downloading music and copying it onto a CD.
Right, and this may not be the perfect example, but that's the one we have for right now.
Somebody searches for protected health information, and sells it to the public, That could be suspension, termination, and more than likely, the client could bring a civil suit against that particular person. So, I'm not aware of this
We've actually,
happening, but
yeah.
these are just examples.
Yeah.
When I went to the HIPAA most recent conference, and this was a famous case, a medical office was using a copier, and something like the copier kept in its internal file of the copier.
Well, actually, each copier has a built-in hard drive. This is one of the things we learned a few years ago. So when we dispose of a copier, we have to pull that hard drive. If not, whoever comes and takes it, anything that was made a copy of for, I'm not sure how far back it goes, is on that hard drive.
So anyway, this medical, company finishes with it. It goes back. Who do you think buys it? CBS. CBS, there's 15,000 patient files stored. That company got fined over $1 million. So technology now has just all this crazy
It just
stuff.
drives me crazy.
Yeah, poor Janet, and I don't want to scare anybody, but, just the importance of really protecting
so
people.
sometimes if we seem like we're being too strict on things, it's not it's not punishment for you. It's just because this stuff happens and it is difficult to manage, and we have to protect our clients.
We're going to go now, and I'm going to ask Janet to really talk about cell phones, electronic mail, and the internet.
Yeah.
Because these are really important things for you all to understand, because these are important parts of the current technology the agency is using to help
And we
you
can
do your
breeze
jobs.
through these pretty quick, because I'm not going to go through all these bullet points or whatever. One thing I really want all of you all to do, which I know it's really, really boring reading, is to actually really sit down and read these. Make sure that you're understanding what they're saying. If they're not, talk to your supervisor, talk to me, because we tried to lay it out pretty clear, and we've tried to get some nice bullet points. This cell phone policy, this is in your employee handbook. All of these forms are that we're doing. This is on the list to go back and revisit. Right now, it's just saying be safe using your cell phone, that you don't endanger or risk yourself. One of the things we want to add to this, and actually we're asking all of you all to do this right now, particularly if you use your cell phones to contact any of your clients, is to put a passcode on it. Basically, that's just a step to keep honest people honest. Cell phones get lost and misplaced so easily. They terrify me. As an organization, service providers, we are saying do not connect your cell phone to the organizational email. The reason being is that if you email anything that regards client information, if that cell phone is lost or misplaced, what do? Is that a violation of HIPAA? Can somebody actually find that and actually read your email, even though it's an email sent internally about, oh, I have this chart for blah, 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 blah. If that was your information, would you want that out there? We're looking at ways to be able to manage this, because we also realize the ability for you all to provide the job and to do the work that you need to do, that convenience is really, really important. Donna will tell you one of the things that we're looking at for next fiscal year is encryption of the email. And if we can get something like that going, that will allow us to be able to loosen up some of the restrictions on this. But we have to be diligent and protect our clients' information.
Quick question, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The phone and the email thing, so I do access the email from my phone right now, but I do it through the internet, not just automatically.
it's, as long as it's not just sitting there on your phone, that's fine. And like somebody in development, it's not so critical for them. They're not emailing client information. We try to be really, we're thinking more of the service providers, because so much of your email is about providing services to your client and making sure your clients have the best service that you can provide them. The next thing here is the electronic email, so I'm just going to kind of walk through this real quick. Do we have anybody from Hands here?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a Louisville KY.
No.
You have ours? Okay, because we have a few little hybrids. I'm going to go through this real quick. Everybody has email. I could care less if you send an email to your best friend. You meet me after work, grab a bite to eat or whatever. I don't care about that. Please be careful though when you start emailing anything that is not business related. Like, don't send your sister that lives in California all your vacation pictures through your email. Fortunately, right now, we have so many other forums like Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. That's not as big of an issue as it used to be, that you can share that type of stuff. But we just ask you to be very, very aware of that when you're sending an email, you're using our resources. We do the best we can to provide the best resources that we have, that we can, so that you can do your job. You all have not been around that long, but for some people, they will tell you, sometimes our network and things were slow. Part of it is because we just want to minimize misuse of it. I don't want to have to call you and say, why did you send this email?
And you all know that under number 1, it's really important, I think, that we highlight that we would never use email for anything related to pornography, violence,
No,
gambling.
exactly.
People sometimes send you links, and when you open it up,
Chain
you don't
letters.
know what the heck happened with that.
Right.
Chain letters, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Just if you get those kinds of things,
Yeah.
please just delete.
Yeah.
Don't open them
Yeah.
up. Don't get, they have viruses. Those e-greeting cards, they can really create havoc.
Actually, we have 2 different spam filters